morning, everybody. My name is Rodney Allen. I'm with Rodney Allen and Associates, LLC. I'm an occupational safety and health consulting firm in Palmetto, Florida. And today we're going to be talking about competent strategic thinker is valuable and rare. Anybody out there know what, have a definition of what strategic thinker means? What about you, Mr. Tim?
Thinker, I think that is like someone that strategizes before they think, right?
But you use the same word to define the word, strategize. Let me make it a little easier. Let me give you a definition of strategic thinking. It's a high level of planning for uncertainty in terms of dealing with uncertainty. The reason a strategic thinker is such a rare and valuable skill is because a lot of companies don't have good strategic thinking going on. Otherwise, they wouldn't go out of business. They wouldn't file for bankruptcy. They wouldn't have employee layoffs. Even the CEO could assure that his job was safe if he was a good strategic thinker. So what I want to do is talk about a positive impact of your organization and your career. And this information that you're going to learn today will make you a strategic thinker, a competent strategic thinker. A strategic thinker basically comes from a level of incompetency to competency. And the way that you do that is by asking questions. First of all, there's two things that I want to emphasize while I go through this presentation. Is that you're looking at two things that are fundamental and foundational in being a strategic thinker. One is you got to have curiosity, and the second is you got to love to learn. So keep that in mind while I go through the presentation. If you got any questions or any concerns, issues, this is your seminar. I want you to ask questions. I want a back and forth between me and the audience so that you can get the most out of this experience. And the biggest thing you're going to learn from this is how to communicate better. So we're going to talk about, so when you finish this, so my hopeful outcome is that when I finish this 45-minute, seminar, that you will know how to be a competent strategic thinker, and that you will be able to take this back to your folks in the workplace and make each one of them a competent strategic thinker. And that will help the productivity and the profitability of your company overall. Anybody got any questions? Okay. A competent strategic thinker is valuable and rare. What I mean by that is, like I say, it's something that the world hasn't really found out about. They haven't found out that 6 steps, it's all about communication. There's different communication and personality styles. You want to recognize how to control your emotions and your communications. The power of asking questions. Asking questions is fundamental in strategic thinking because it takes you from a level of being incompetent to looking silly, goofy, ridiculous, stupid, all these things, to being looked and viewed as being competent, being observant, being clear-headed, being thoughtful, being all these nice things that we like to think about in terms of leadership. I go back to my whole thing about curiosity. It started when I was 5 years old, and I read a book called Curious George. Curious George, he was curious about everything. He got into everything. And that's you have to have the mentality of an 8-year-old. And you got to ask questions, and you can't be afraid to put yourself out there to make yourself look vulnerable. You got to ask the questions and get the answer. Keep asking why. You can ask why, where, how, what, when, and those questions that you ask, and you get the answers for them. At first, it's going to be awkward. You're going to be uncomfortable because you're putting yourself out there. You make yourself vulnerable, but you should continue. You should worry about that. You should worry about just being a competent strategic thinker so that you can deal with uncertainty and feel comfortable and stable in an uncertain environment. When I did my research for on strategic competent thinkers, I came up with over 20 people's names that were strategic thinkers, competent thinkers. But there's 4 that really stood out. And I'm going to talk about a Dr. Henry Metzenberg. He's got a PhD. He's currently teaching at McGill University in Canada. And he came up with what we call, he coined the phrase community ship. He coined that term. And what that means is the world has gone beyond leadership to community ship, which means that you're dealing with rural hospitals, you're dealing with law enforcement, you're dealing with the homeless, you're dealing with all the things that make up a society. Your focus is on that rather than, say, leadership. And that word is so new that it's not even in the dictionary yet. So be on the lookout for community ship instead of leadership. That's what you should be shooting for. And then you got Richard Rumet. All these guys that I'm talking about, the gentleman you see up there, Henry Mitz, Richard Rumet, Clayton Christensen, they have over 40 years of research in management and management. Management theory hasn't changed much in the last 40 years. And the only thing that's changed is technology. So that you can be certain of that. And then, like I said, the research is showing that community ship is really the buzzword today and probably into the future by the year 2020 and beyond. So you should be good. And then we have a lady, her name is Carol DeWitt. She also is a PhD. She currently teaches at Stanford University. And she's an expert in success and motivation. And basically what she says is that you should think of the world, look at the world through the eyes of an 8-year-old. Be curious and love to learn and make mistakes, make failures, have setbacks, but never quit, never give up. Continue to learn, continue to grow, and get stronger in your setbacks, because that's all part of the game. When you're playing the game, you're going to have some successes, you're going to have some losses. That's all part of the game. So you can't, just because you have a setback, give up. You just look at that as part of your education, part of your training, part of your experience. That whatever is going to set you apart from the rest of the crowd. Clayton Christensen, he's a PhD. Well, she has 20 years. Carol DeWitt has 20 years of experience doing research on success and motivation, and that is a very young age for research, 20 years. So be aware of these people. If you want to learn more about what I'm talking about, being a strategic thinker, go ahead and review the works of Henry Mintzberg. He's teaching at McGill University. Richard Rumet, he was at Harvard, but now he's at UCLA. Clayton Christensen, he's at Harvard. And Carol DeWitt, she is at Stanford. You got any questions? Anybody got any questions? Okay, not right now? Okay. Like, just chime in anytime you feel you need to have a question. The 8 secrets of great communications. You got to be able to speak to groups as you're speaking to individuals. You got to talk to people that will listen. You got to listen to people will talk, so people will talk. You got to connect emotionally. You got to have ready body language. You got to prepare your intent. You got to skip jargon. And you got to practice active listening. The world's foremost authority on emotional intelligence is a guy by the name of Travis. He's a PhD, a dual PhD in psychology from the University of California School of Professional Psychology. And his name is Travis Bradberry. And he wrote a book called Emotional Intelligence 2.0, which is a bestseller. And basically it talks about what you need to do to become a better communicator. I don't care who you are or what you've done in the past, whatever. Everybody can do something to become a better communicator. All right, look at these great leaders. The common thread between these great leaders, Steve Jobs of Apple, Alan Mulally of Ford, Eric Schmidt of Google, and Jack Welch of General Electric, is that they all had strategic thinking coaches. It's kind of going back to like Tiger Woods. He revolutionized golf when he got a coach. And then people began to think of golf as a sport, or as a golfer as an athlete. And so if these people that were great in themselves, great leaders, and they found the need to have a strategic thinking coach, then why not you as an individual or as a group have an individual strategic thinking coach? By the end of this presentation, I believe that my goal is that you will become a competent strategic thinker. Six steps to clear communication. You got to identify, you got to look in the future and determine the outcome that you want. You got to choose the best mode of communication. You got to consider your tone. You got to identify potential barriers. You got to check for understanding. You got to ask for feedback. Feedback is critical. Don't look at constructive criticism. Some people say there's no such thing as constructive criticism, but there is. Constructive criticism, or criticism in general, is priceless because it lets you know exactly what your customer wants. And if you know what your customer wants, it gives you the opportunity to satisfy or please your customer in a way that no one else can but you. So that makes you unique. And your customer will, not only will you close your customer on deals, but you will have repeat business, which is really the sign of good customer service. Do they come back to you? Do they do business with you? And that's what you want. Like I said, anytime you want to jump in and ask questions, you ask questions. Some of the barriers to communication are biases, cultural differences, accents and regional language variation, existing relationships, assumptions on both sides, of defensiveness, stress, distorted perception, past interaction, self-esteem, environmental distractions, time of the conversation, information overload. I mean, that's just a few. There's a whole bunch of distractions. It all boils down to distractions. You got to eliminate distractions and focus on whatever you have to focus on. Now, Carol DeWitt talked about self-esteem, and she basically says the self-esteem movement failed. It doesn't work. And her research pretty much attests to that fact, that self-esteem doesn't work. And she's also, she doesn't agree, she and Henry Mintzberg don't agree that you should give kids grades. They don't believe that you should give kids grades because what it does is it sets up it takes away from the love of learning. A kid should read a book like Curious George or one of those other type of books. Curious George goes to the hospital, or he goes to school, or goes to a museum, and they should develop an imagination, a creativity, where they just love to learn and they're just curious throughout their entire life. They become lifelong learners, and they're not worried about grades. If you get a C, or if you're a C+ student, you should just get as much consideration as a student that gets an A and a B. And they're revolutionizing the field of motivation and success and management. And like I say, if you really want to delve deeper into this thing, go and look at those 4 people that I named as the revolutionary change makers in the management and the success and motivation industry. Communication and personality cycle. If you ever felt at discomfort with your coworkers, maybe you're not speaking each other's language, about 80% of language or communication is body language. And ways of communicating better is by understanding yourself and others, and you can become a more effective team member. So you have to understand that teams are people with personalities, they with different styles, different learning styles, and you have to take that into consideration when you're working with a team, and you will learn that. One thing Henry Mitch says, in order, the best way to learn a person or to know a person is either to marry them or to work with them. So it's your choice. Recognizing and managing emotions. Basically, your emotions are very key. You need to understand your emotions. You need to understand how you feel and why you feel the way you do. And Travis Bradbury, he's the one that specializes, like I say, in emotional intelligence 2.0, and he's revolutionized that business. So what are emotions? Emotions are feelings, but others also have emotions. So you have to not only be aware of your emotions, but you have to be aware of the other person's emotions. And I'll get into a little more detail on that in the next slide. Here we go, curiosity. You can learn something from everyone if you're curious enough. So you can learn from a fool, you can learn from a genius, you can learn from anybody in between, anybody with an IQ between 70 and 160, you can do something with, or even below 160, even if they're autistic, if they're whatever, you can learn. So that should be food for thought for anybody who wants to be a strategic thinker. Listening matters. When we ask good questions. There's no such thing as good questions. All there is questions. You ask questions based on what you're incompetent in and what you don't know to gain the access of competency and what you do know. So curiosity is the key. You can learn from everyone. There's 3 levels of listening. Level number 1 is you listen to yourself. You listen to your emotions, you listen to your feelings, and listening step number 2 is you listen to others. You pay attention to their body language, you pay attention to their emotions, you pay attention to their feelings, and then the third thing is you pay attention, you listen to the things, your external environment, the things that's happening around you, what's going on around you. Be aware of what the people are doing, why they're doing it. Ask questions. Just ask questions. Lots of questions. There's no such thing as a stupid question. Don't be afraid to look silly. Don't look stupid. To have people call you crazy, dumb, stupid. That gets into that self-esteem world, which we know has failed. And so, as Dr. Carol DeWitt noted, that world is ended, and her research bears this out. And then finally, we talk about the science of storytelling. People generally are able to remember stories more so than they do anything else. The brain has been wired. The brain is your major survival tool, and nature has by design made it slightly negative. So you slightly always think negative in case you have to fight or fright, or flight or flee, or flight or fight. Sorry, but basically that's what nature has taught you to do. And but there's ways and things that you can overcome that with a mindset called what Carol DeWitt has called the growth mindset and the fixed mindset. You generally want to be in the growth mindset position, but you do need people who have fixed mindsets, people who are kind of set in their ways, whatever, because the growth mindset, sometimes you can become overly exuberant or overly ecstatic or overly optimistic, and you need somebody to be able to pull your coattail to slow you down. Six steps to effective communication. Identify the desired outcome. Choose the best mode of communication. Consider your tone. Identify potential barriers. Check for understanding. Ask for feedback. Let me give you some examples of strategic thinking that I've come across that may be helpful to you. When I was pledging a fraternity, they told me to knock down the wall. I mean, somebody tells you to knock down the wall. I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to physically try to knock down the wall? Or are you going to actually go and knock down the wall? Or they tell you to get in a windowsill and jump out of the window. Well, I'm 2 stories. If I jump out of the window 2 stories, I'm going to kill myself. But if I jump out of the window back into the room, I'm fine. Another thing is, this is a classic when it comes to competitive sports. You know, you got soccer, you got lacrosse, you got rugby, you got football, you got baseball, you got all these. And the question comes up, which one is the most competitive or the most that leads to the best strategic thinking? Well, I didn't mention high school wrestling. I didn't mention college wrestling. I'm not talking about that stuff raw and all that. I'm talking about one individual going against another individual, muscle on muscle. And then in 10 days, in order to meet their weight requirements, they may have to lose 10 pounds, which requires discipline, which requires perseverance, determination, all these qualities that are embodied in going and get a PhD. And that's one of the reasons why I like focusing on people that have PhDs, because I know that their research has been peer reviewed, and that and I look at their methodology, and that's only only place you're gonna find the flaws in their methodology. But you got to even ask questions of so-called experts. Why is this? Why is that?
Well, why when they knock the window out, will come in the window?
No, it's a joke. When I was pledging the fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, they'll say, Rodney, they'll take me up 3, 4 flights of stairs and say, Rodney, get in the window. Now jump out the window. So I have a choice. I can jump 3 floors down, or I can jump back into the room. Yeah, it's all called, that's an example of strategic thinking. Now, one thing that I want to give you about strategic thinking, I heard a friend tell me this, and he said that he was sitting on the bank of a river, and he saw this really excellent swimmer swimming, and he caught cramps, and he was having problems, and he couldn't float. And he had 3 choices. This is strategic thinking. He had 3 choices. He could sit on the bank and not do anything, and let the guy drown. Well, that wasn't good. Or he could go out there, jump in the water, go out there and rescue the guy, and both guys drown because the guy is drowning and he's panicking, and he grabs hold of him, and both of them end up drowning. Well, that's not good. And the third thing he could do, he could sit on the bench, watch the guy go down for the 3rd time, and then after third and final time, then go out and grab the guy, because when he go out and grab the guy, he's gonna have the strength and energy of a little baby. And so both of them live. That's an example of strategic thinking. So, and it goes back to, you know, somebody getting problems with the law enforcement, your son or daughter, and they go to jail. Or what are you gonna do? Go and get a lawyer and get them out? Or are they gonna learn their lesson by doing that? Or are you gonna let them stay in and learn their lesson, and then when they get out, they'll be a better person? Things of that nature. So, and then finally, one last thing I'd like to say, I got a friend of mine. He paid a guy $10,000 to live with him for 3 months to learn the secrets that he knew about being a life coach. Now, how many people will pay somebody $10,000 to live with them? And the first thing the guy did for him was, you see, you gotta learn to listen to yourself. So he put a body microphone on him, and for 24 hours, except times when he had to go in the shower or whatever, he would wear that body microphone, that body recorder around with him, and he would listen to himself. He would play it back and listen to himself. See, and finally, the one thing I'm going to say last, I saw this in my church. Thoughts lead to words. Words lead to action. Action leads to habits. Habits lead to character, and character determines your destination. So whatever outcome you want, see yourself there, and then work backwards, and then it'll tell you the steps. In terms of strategic thinking, like I said, is about having high-level thinking skills to deal with the uncertainty that exists in every situation. And, and the way you do that is you implement what we call tactical steps. Tactical steps are little things that you do. For example, if you want to become a market leader in the world, yeah. Oh, all right. I'm glad you'll make it. If you want to become market leaders in the world, then a tactic or the steps that you need, one of the steps you could take is by doubling your marketing and your advertising budget. Is there anybody else that got any questions? Anything that they want to know about how to become a strategic thinker? What about you ladies that just walked in? What is your definition of a strategic thinker? What do you think a strategic thinker is? Okay, planning appropriately and executing your plan. That sounds good. What about this? Strategic thinking is a high level of thinking where you learn to deal with the uncertainties in the world. You have an outcome that you think about. Hey, how y'all doing? Hey, how y'all doing? Glad to meet you. Hey, Dina, how you doing? How you doing? How you doing?
Okay.
Good. Good to see you. Hey, how you doing, Donna? Okay, thanks. Have a seat. We're talking about strategic thinking. My mission is, at the end of this talk, to have each and every one of you be a strategic thinker, a competent strategic thinking. I was explaining that most people start out in a level of incompetency, and they don't want to look stupid, silly, crazy, dumb, or be called these things. That's why the self-esteem movement has failed. It doesn't work. But like I was telling before you came in, there are four people that have made a revolutionary impact on the field of management and success and motivation. One is Dr. Henry Mintzberg, and he's out of McGill University in Canada. And the other one is Dr. Richard Mullett. He's out of UCLA. He formerly was at Harvard. And another one is Dr. Clayton Christensen. He's at Harvard. And finally, the fourth person is a lady. Her name is Dr. Carol S. Dweck, and she's the world's foremost authority on success and motivation. And basically, she says that her and Dr. Mintzberg, to me, are the premier researchers on this. The three men each have over 40 years of research to back and they have PhDs. That's generally why. It's not because I'm elitist or that I look at PhDs, but I know what they go through in order to get their PhD, and I know that the rigor and the peer review of the information they provide has to pass all kind of tests, and it's not fake news. The research is really next to having the best available information you need in terms of making a decision. And that's what you want. You want to utilize the best available information that's available to make decisions, good decisions, great decisions, tremendous decisions, awesome decisions. Like I say, what I'm going to do is I'm going to auction off. There's two books that I've given that I bought yesterday on Curious George. Curious George, when I was 5 years old, was a book that got me to love to learn. And his curiosity and his love to learn are the two key foundational qualities you need in order to be a competent strategic thinker. Carol DeWitt doesn't like grades, A, B, C, D, because it takes the emphasis off of the love to learn. You're doing things for the test. You're doing things for the standards or whatever. Henry Mintzberg, he doesn't like tests either. He's created a MBA program where they don't study your traditional case studies such as Walmart, Radio Shack, WorldCom, Tyco, Johnson & Johnson. Your case study is you, yourself, your company or your organization or whatever. And that's more meaningful. And Henry Mintzberg, he's coined a word called community ship. And community ship, yeah, how y'all doing? How y'all doing? And community ship, y'all have a seat. Glad you can make it. It's a rainy day, so the weather's terrible, so that had a lot to do with the people coming out today because of the weather. So just bear with me. We're going to put this video on YouTube, and then we're going to give you a copy of it so that you can take advantage of what you missed, and then it'll benefit you, and not only you, but also your family members, your relatives, your friends. You can pass it around and just let it become viral. That's my hope. So, anybody got any questions about strategic thinking? Competent strategic thinking? Yeah, Dino. Huh? Somebody want to help Dino out? What is he saying? Yeah, oh. Hey, how you doing? All right. Yeah. Any question? There's no such thing as a stupid question. People call me crazy, call me stupid, call me dumb because I ask the questions, because of the questions that I ask. But it doesn't faze me because I know what I'm doing. I'm constantly striving toward competency. I'm constantly striving to improve myself, to get better, and that's what you got to do. Like in my company, take for example my company, Rodney Allen and Associates LLC. The 4 people that I have out front in my company, they all have PhDs. They all have Masters of Science or Masters of Business Administration. They all have they're certified industrial hygienists, or they're certified safety professionals, or they're certified hazardous material. They're the best in the world. And then when I hire all the people in my staff in order to teach a course in public, they have to have a master's or a PhD. And then when I hire somebody who's got a master's, in 30 days, they need to sign up and get into somebody's PhD program because it's all about continuing education. I went through the TQM, Total Quality Management revolution, the Lean Six Sigma revolution, the Master Belt, Black Belt revolution. So you're dealing with lean, you're dealing with efficiencies, you're dealing with waste, and all these type of things. But strategic thinking is the most rare and valuable skill that you can develop because the workers are not responsible for the company going out of business. They're not responsible for being laid off. They're not responsible for losing customers or losing clients. It's management, poor management from the top down, from the CEO, the chief financial officer, the CEO. They don't communicate. The reason you have to be strategic is because we have limited resources, and people are competing for these limited resources. Whether it's, if you look at an organization, whether it's your controller, your chief financial officer, or your marketing director, or your productions managers or supervisors, or your operations managers, they're all competing for limited resources, and they're also competing for the ear of the CEO. And so you got to be able to be competent and be a strategic thinker in terms of saying, hey, look, I'm out here. You got a meeting. Every meeting you have, I need to be sitting at the table. I'm a safety person, and the safety needs to be there. And we're a profession. We're a practice. That's why I say all my people have to have PhDs or better, or masters or better. And then if they got a master's, in 30 days, they need to be in somebody's PhD program. And it's all about continuing. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question, Brother Allen.
Yes.
If everyone has to have a PhD, we advise everyone here does not have PhD.
Well, I said the front office. I said the back office. The back office is people that don't deal with the customer. They can have a bachelor's or master's, and I'll be training them, and I'll be paying for them to get their education. You see what I'm saying? To get better. But it's like a baseball. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So my question was, okay, I have a doctorate.
Right, right.
Okay, so I know I meet your criteria.
Right.
But let's say a lot of these people here, like the youngsters, they
Right.
want to come.
Right.
How could this be beneficial to them in school?
It could be, well, learning to be a strategic thinker, they'll become more self-directed, and then they'll understand that in a company, you got all these departments. You got the purchasing department, you got the shipping department, you got the accounting. And if they understand what each one of those departments does, and they understand what their role is, what their responsibility is, what happens is the organization becomes stronger. It becomes better. And as a result, I can guarantee, because my core competency is business development and sales. My job is to go out and get the contracts, get the work, put the work in the pipeline so that people can work. They'll be able to work. If people choose to be at my company for 30 or 40 years, they can do that because, I mean, it goes with the Japanese. The Japanese used to offer their workers lifetime employment, stability. And the only way you can do that, nowadays, I had a situation where there was a chief executive officer sitting at his table eating eggs and drinking coffee, and he picked up the newspaper, and he found out in the newspaper that his company was sold. And nobody told him about it, and he's out of a job. He can't even protect his own job. I can't even protect the rank and file job. So strategic thinking, what that does is it gives you certainty in an uncertain world. And once again, it allows you to think about you ask yourself if-then questions. If this happened, then I'm going to do this. If this happened, and then you look at your desired outcome. This is my desired outcome. I want to make sure that my workers have lifetime employment. In order for me to do that, me as CEO of my company, as a chief business developer and the salesman, then I need to keep our work flush in the pipeline. So, and that's not happening. That's why you see a lot of these companies going bankrupt, closing, laying off people, firing people, bad hires. And there's three things you look for. Well, there's two things you look for in a person. You look for curiosity, the curiosity of an 8-year-old, and you look for the love of learning. If they got those two things, then they're workable. They can be helped. And also you look at integrity, ethics, morality. You look at there's a couple other things you look at. Energy level. You know, they eat healthy. They eat blueberries and strawberries. They're eating fish, chicken, they're baking. You know, these type of things. You don't have to do everything perfect because everything as Carol DeWitt says, the PhD on success and motivation. She says the most important word in the dictionary is yet. I can't speak Spanish yet. I can't run a 5K marathon yet. But I'm taking a little steps at a time, nibbling at it, and eventually I will get there. And that's the attitude you have to have. I can't swim yet. I'm going to hire me a swim coach. I'm going to do 6 lessons. She's going to teach me what I need to do, and I'm going to swim. You know, so the word, she says the most important word is yet. And I explained a little bit about Carol S. DeWitt, Dr. Carol S. DeWitt. In the last 20 years, she's revolutionized the world of success and motivation with her research, and she's out of Stanford. So there's, like I said, there were 4 people that I looked at. I Googled the 20 plus more influential people in terms of strategic thinking, and those 4 stood out: Dr. Henry Metzberg, Richard Mullett, Clayton Christensen, and Dr. S. DeWitt. Those 4, each one of those men have over 40 years of research in management. And Dr. Henry Metzberg says that management hasn't changed in 40 years. The only thing that's changed is technology. And then people, the nature of people haven't changed since man was able to pull himself up out of a cave and walk up on 2 legs. They still got greed, you still got jealousy, you still got, people want to be achievement oriented, you still got these things. But Maslow's hierarchy of needs goes out the window. And then finally, the last thing I'm going to say about this is, there's a guy named Robert Tuckman. He's a PhD. And in 1975, he came up with, when you have a team goes through a certain process. They go through, first you form the team. Then you have what they call storming. That means people disagree, they argue with each other, they don't like each other, they're whatever. Then you get past that and you go to norming. Then people start working together, they work out their differences and they iron things out. And then you get to what they call performing. Then you're really running on 8 cylinders. I mean, you're really clicking, the team is clicking. And then finally, he came out in 1975 with this final one. He called it adjourning, which means the team's got to break up. There's a lot of time when teams break up, when people break up, when you lose some, you have a sense of a death. You know, somebody's died. You go through anger, you go through depression, you go through these things. But there, he came up, this Dr. Robert Tuckman, he has a bachelor's in psychology, a master's in psychology, and a PhD in psychology. He came up with the idea that there's no way you can short circuit that what I just outlined to you. So the best thing you can do is get through it as quick as you can and move on. So anybody got any questions or any concerns or anything that they want to talk about that I haven't spoke on? Yes.
So my question is, with the adjourning, is that going to always happen with every team? Is that an outcome or is that a desired outcome?
Well, you got to think about it. For example, if you got a company, if you never thought about your exit strategy, exactly 15, 20 years down the road, somebody come and tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, buddy, you know, you no longer can do this anymore. What are you going to do? Or are you going to sell the company? Or are you going to pass it down to your kids? You got to have, what strategic thinking does, it lets you think far out. It's like, go ahead, Marvina.
Yeah, I totally agree. I understand totally what you're saying too.
Okay.
And like you're saying, strategic thinking is the troubleshoot. Basically, you're looking down the line
Right.
to see those things that could take place.
Right.
I myself have multiple companies.
Right.
So, in troubleshooting, like you said, I have
Right.
a desired
Right.
outcome, but
Right.
not all the time can we achieve
Right.
that
Right.
outcome right away.
Right.
So what am I gonna do to combat that?
Right.
Now to accomplish that said goal.
Right.
So
Right.
then that would take, like you said, you have people that's around the board now. We've established the board from the beginning.
Right.
And then each person will play their own separate role.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So then in doing so, you may have somebody that can combat that. Like you say, you may want to, what do you say, you have a desired outcome? Well, we may not be able to reach that desired outcome right away.
Yes.
You know, this is what we're aiming at.
Right.
This is where we are.
Right.
And what are the measurable steps that it's gonna take for me to get there?
And that's considered tactical, the steps you're going to use. Like I was telling them before, if you want to become a market leader, then you're going to say, your tactic would be, well, the steps that you're going to take. Well, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to double my advertising and marketing budget. You know, or if you're on a cruise ship, they're thinking about improving customer service. And the way they're going to do that is they're going to make sure that they inspect the bathrooms, the toilets, every 30 minutes or every hour. Make sure they're clean. There's, you know, so nobody can come and say, I had a bad experience on there because the toilet was. McDonald's is a perfect example. I worked for McDonald's when I got out of college, and they kept that bathroom clean because, I mean, people won't come back to your place if they see you can't keep the bathroom clean. Then you can't keep, you know. Then what other big problems do you have? You know, it's kind of like when I was in New York City. The police officer will pull you over for having a headlight out. And the reason they pull you over for it is a safety thing, too. But the real reason is, chances are, if you got a headlight out, then you probably don't have any car insurance or something bigger. So if you can't take care of the small things, then how can we allow you to take care of the big things, that type of thing? So something to think about. Yeah, you're constantly evolving. It's like, I'm not there yet, but this is what I want to do. I want to be able to speak Spanish in 6 months or a year. I need to get me a person who has English as a second language, who's Spanish. I'm going to pay her $20 an hour. We're going to meet 3 hours a week, either Tuesday or Thursday or Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And then we may increase it. We make adjustments as we go along, depending on what's going on. You know, so it's like feedback, like checking, troubleshooting, you know, asking questions, and not being afraid to look stupid, to sound silly, whatever. Whatever it's going to take legally and ethically for you to get to your level of competency where you feel, you know, okay, I feel good about that. Yeah, okay. But still, I'm not going to really take my eye off it 100%. I'm going to be looking back occasionally, you know, because my goal is to get a PhD in mathematics and computer science, because I want to figure out Einstein's theory of unifying forces. But with the math and with the science at the level it is today, I know that's possible because they didn't have that during Einstein. He spent 40 years trying to figure that out. He never did. But so that's one of my goals. But I got to ask myself, how can I do that? Well, I need to go to the best engineering school in the world. See, the MIT, California Institute of Technology, or the United States Navy Nuclear Power Program. I've been to the Navy. So it's either between MIT and California Institute of Technology. You know, those are the two schools where they excel in that area. It's like if I want to build a bridge, I don't go to a shoe salesman and ask him how to build a bridge. I go to a bridge builder and ask him, you know, what I need to do. You know, let's talk about this. Let's have a conversation.
So basically, you're encouraging the people to find a mentor or someone that they can.
Mentors are good.
Or like someone in the business that they can basically,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, like I
the
said,
right way.
yeah, you want to talk to somebody who's doing what you sit back and you see, oh, that person right there is in excellent shape, or, you know, I want to know what he's doing or she's doing, you know, that I'm not doing, that I could do differently, you know.
So in business, what can you do? Like, I know you were talking about the exit strategies. What other strategies would be good for your business? You know, like the process of, you know.
The best strategy is for you to be a lifelong learner. That's the best strategy, and to, you know, if you're in business, I look at shows like Shark Tank, like Bar Rescue, like Undercover Boss, Restaurant, different shows that shows you business and exactly what they're doing and how they're doing it, as well as learning the basics. You got to have a good solid foundation, you know, because then it all one day it'll be like a light at the end of the tunnel. It just turns on. You can see at the end of the tunnel, and you know, and you can understand that. See, the thing about the Japanese, you got Dr. McGregory came up with two theories of management: Theory X and Theory Y. Anybody know what they are? All right. Thank you. God bless you. Theory X is that the employees on a low-level managers usually implement this theory, that employees don't want to be here, so you got to be mean to them, cynical, you can't trust them. That's Theory X. Theory Y is that employees want to be here, they want to do a good job, you know, more upper-level management, things like that. And then Theory Z was founded by a guy named Dr. Ouchi, O-U-C-H-I. And he said that he's the one that started the lifetime employment in Japan. He said basically people want stability, they want lifetime employment, and that's where I'm at. I'm at Theory Z. I will ensure my employees that they can stay with me as long as they want to. 30 years, 40 years, whatever, because at my job as business developer and sales is to keep the work coming and to keep those pipelines filled. If I don't do my job, then they suffer, they lose their job, they lose their family, well-being, they lose a lot of things. So it's my job to be the best at what my core competency is. And whatever's not my core competency, I outsource that to the people who are better at that than I am. Because I could probably do it, but I'm not going to do it as fast, cheaper, or efficient, or better. And why should I waste my time doing that? I need to focus on what my strengths are. My strengths are management, leadership, and the new word that's been coined by Dr. Mintzberg is communityship. Communityship is meaning I'm dealing with the Manatee Roof Hero, the Florida Department of Health, Tropicana, Sun Hydraulics, NGOs, nonprofits, United Way. I'm totally engaged, involved in the community. And that's the new leadership. It's gone beyond leadership. It's gone to communityship now. And that word hasn't showed up in the dictionary, but I'm sure in the next 5 to 10 years, it's going to be in the dictionary, communityship. Somebody said, what's that, communityship? Well, it's already here. And Dr. Marvina Allen, she got that, communityship. You know, so has this helped anybody to further along their aims to become a competent strategic thinker? I got 2 books. I got Curious George, and I got Curious George Goes to the Science Museum, and I got Curious George. I was going to pull some business cards and give them somebody, and then give them an hour free consultation. But anybody, I'll give the books to anybody here that wants them. You got kids, I'll give both of them to you. You let your kids, because Curious George is the thing that really excited me and got me really wanting to learn to love to learn. And I think it's still that way. It's a book. When you see this book on Curious George Go to School, you're just gonna laugh. I mean, he's eating blueberries and strawberries for lunch, you know, turkey. He's doing all the right things, and he's asking questions. He's exploring his world, getting in trouble, you know. But hey, that's okay. That's what they do. That's how they learn. That's how they grow. Anybody else got any comments, any closing remarks? Dr. Marvina Allen?
What I love about strategic thinking is this. It can be used in all aspects of our life. From the kids, when they're in school, up until the business aspects as to where you are.
Right.
It's like a chess game. Every move you make, there's a consequence to the move. So I love about taking information in from everyone because we grow from one another. See, listening to you talk, because no one has all the answers. As stated by Mr. Allen, when you want to establish a foundation or establish a business, you got to learn about that you want to begin. Am I right? So we're going to conduct research. Go ahead, Brother Marcus.
Can strategic thinking be used in the community?
Oh, of course. Yes, that's the best place for it, in the community. Get involved in your church, get involved in your school. When you go to school, you go to high school, get involved in the yearbook, get involved in the school newspaper, become an editor or photographer, get involved in student government, just get involved, engage, and you'll see yourself take off like an eagle. You'll just fly, you'll soar. Yeah, Marcus?
So what you trying to say, it can be used anywhere?
Yeah, it can be used anywhere. Your greatest survival tool is your brain. And, you know, I realized early in my career that I wasn't going to go to the NBA, the National Basketball Association, because I was slow and I wasn't quick. So I put all my eggs in one basket called education, academics. And so I decided that if I couldn't go to the NBA, then I'll get me an MBA, Master's of Business Administration. And the average life of a ball player, of basketball, baseball, whatever, is 4 years. And that's why they pay them those millions of dollars, because after that, their knees go bad, their joints, they have problems, or they just, you know, it's very rare for anybody to do 18 or 20 years. Like Jerry Rice is an example. He did over 20 years, but he was a hard worker. And that's what Carol DeWitt talks about. It's not about your intelligence, it's about how hard you're willing to work. You can if you got average intelligence and you go up against somebody who's a genius and you outwork that person, you'll always be ahead of him, you know, regardless of his intelligence. It's not about IQ. It's about your consistency and all those things.
May I add something to what he was asking? You asked, can you use it in school? You can always use it in school. You can go back from when you get your homework assignment. You have to think about what it is that the teacher's asking, and then you apply yourself to the work that is required of you. And in doing so, I'm just simple stepping it, you'll get the desired grade that you want. And if you don't get the desired grade this time, then you try again. A strategic thinker is always thinking about doing something. I can see it as being a positive person, somebody looking for a positive outcome. What is it that I really want to accomplish? I know I'm not satisfied where I am right now. So I'm going to take what you just gave us, always thinking about what I'm thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Right.
in order to accomplish that goal.
Right.
What'd you say, hon?
Your next move.
Yes, always thinking about what I'm thinking about. And not all the time do I have all the answers. So it may come by way of television, it may come by way of me being around the right people. So you also have to center yourself in the right environment in order to accomplish those things that you want to accomplish.
Right. Preparation meets opportunity equals success. Yeah, Marcus.
So strategic thinking is thinking ahead of the game.
Strategic thinking is basically it's a high level of planning. It's a high level of planning where you deal with uncertainties. So you make those uncertainties become you change those uncertainties to certain. For example, right now I'm getting ready to have a second federal government contract that I'm applying for, but there are other contracts, other things that I'm doing. I got private sector, like companies, become a minority, diversity, set aside programs for Fortune 500 companies like Walmart, IBM, whatever, become gain access to them. So I'm diversifying my options. I'm never stopping. When I finish one thing, I'm starting something else. Or I may be even starting something else while I'm working on something else, overlapping. You know, so you got to constantly be continuously improving yourself, you know, and looking for performance and results, not just a handout. Well, you know, like I go in a company, I'll say, well, if I save you $3, I want $1. You're not paying me by the hour. You know, you're not guaranteeing me a salary. It's based on my performance and my results. And that's what you want to see. You want to see performance and results. You know, and that's anybody you deal with. Some guy said, I had a guy, he did proposal writing, and he said, I said, well, you get 20%, if we get the proposal, if we win the proposal, you'll get 20% of the net revenue, taking out the expenses and taking out the taxes. You'll get 20% of that. And he looked at it and he said, well, that means I'm working for free. I said, we're all working for free, but we're working based on performance and getting results. You know, if I gave you a salary of $35,000, whatever, you know, what would your motivation be? What would be your incentive? I need you to work.
So then, Mr. Allen, you have to first have a goal.
Yeah, you have to have a goal.
You have to have a vision.
Right.
You have to have a goal, and then you want a desired outcome that's stated.
Right.
Everything, the goal has to be something you're focusing toward.
Right.
Every time.
Right.
And then the steps to get you to accomplishing that successful goal.
Right. Exactly. And the steps are considered tactical. To put a word on it, I didn't know these words until I went to business school, and I didn't know about the PhD until I enrolled in the PhD program. And the most important thing about a PhD program, when you read somebody's research, is to look at their methodology. Exactly how many men, how many women, how many boys, how many girls. Was it all men? Was it all women? Were they from this country, from Brazil, from Russia? You look at, because I don't care what researchers they do, they try to be as fair and unbiased as possible, but every research has flaws, and you got to be able to identify those flaws and the nature of the sort. Yeah.
And then not only that, because strategic thinking can also, you got to have the will, you want to have the desire, the will, and you want to be up to the challenge. Determination to drive yourself to
The biggest thing I had to learn
the best that you can be.
The biggest thing I had to learn is that I typically work 18, 19 hours and get very little sleep. But the biggest thing I had to learn recently, and I had a guy that was mentoring me, and he told me that I need to get sleep. Your body needs sleep. You need to listen to your body. I said, how you do that? He said, well, just go and lay down in the bed, and if your body's sleepy, it'll go to sleep. You know, and then when you wake up, just wake up. Don't wake up without alarm. Just wake up naturally. And that's how you know you're getting all your rest. But if you don't do that, how can you don't get enough sleep, enough rest, how can you think? You can't think clearly. You can't, you know, you're stressed out and all these negative things. So last night, my plan was to go to the gym. I usually go to the gym twice a day, 5 in the morning and about 6 in the evening. Well, last night I thought about that and I said, today is an important day. I need all my energy. I need to be alert. I need to be focused. I need to be present. So I'm not going to the gym. I'm going to get my rest. I'm just going to get my rest, sleep, and listen to some comedy by Bob Hope. I bought a comedy tape by him, just something different to relax me, to take my mind off of whatever I was focusing on, to just, distract me and just come in and do a good job. And my outcome was to have people in here like you guys asking questions, learning, and my ultimate outcome from this video is to put it on YouTube, to give it away for free, so that everybody in 45 minutes to an hour can go to a competent strategic thinker. And they'll have the information they need to go and do their own research, because they can go back to these research sources that I gave you. Dr. Henry Mitzberg, Richard Mullard. And I got copies of, if you want copies of the PowerPoint presentation, I got it. And it's got all that information on it. And all you got to do, you can go as far, as deep, as long as you want to. It's up to you. It's your decision. Yeah.
It's interesting that you bring up relaxation, which is very important. As a young man was asking about strategic thinking, a lot of times you have to rest in order to
Recharge your batteries.
well, not only that, it's like when it's sleep deprivation.
Right,
So it's almost like you're intoxicated.
right, right,
Your mind, your brain.
right,
It's not resting. It's not getting the oxygen that you need.
Right.
Therefore, you can't put out your best.
right,
So that's a part of strategic thinking as well. Relaxing, like you said.
right,
So it's just interesting.
right.
That,
Well, the thing is, you being a nurse and everything, that's very good training. So, I mean, you mentioned to me when I went to the Pride in the Park, or Praise in the Park, my blood pressure was up and everything, and you said something like, if you just walk a little ways, you don't have to walk fast, just add a few more steps to your walk, then you can bring those numbers down. And that's what I did. I started walking in a swimming pool back and forth for an hour, 2 hours, and I felt my body getting stronger, over time. And I know it was a good thing. And everybody says it. The doctor said that's good. Less impact on your joints, whatever. Yeah, Marcus. You got a question, Marcus? Oh, okay. Has anybody learned anything, or do you feel this was worth your time? Because, like I said, we got competing interests. Everybody's competing for limited resources, and you got to try to figure out a way that your voice can be heard. And it's kind of like when George Bush said when the terrorists attacked us, he said, "We heard them, now they're going to hear us." So it's our turn, it's our time, it's our season. Anybody got any questions? Marcus?
So strategic thinking means thinking ahead of the game and using your brain to
I'm gonna try to put it, let me see, strategic thinking, like I said, it's a plan. You gotta put it in right, like I got a business plan. My business plan, when it first started, I mean, it looked like crap. It didn't look good. But now it looks like a professional, polished, everything. But that I went through an evolution. You're gonna go through an evolution. You know what I mean? So where are you at? It's about, you gotta ask yourself, I'll say one thing, you gotta ask yourself your question. You gotta ask yourself, am I happy with where I'm at? Or you gotta ask yourself, if I get in that position or if I get that job, or what will that really make me happy? And I ask myself that question. If I work for another company, even if I go in there as business development and sales, am I gonna be happy if I have to report to the vice president of sales versus reporting to the CEO? The only way I'm gonna be happy is if I'm the CEO calling the shots. So that answers my question right there. Anything else I do, I consider it a waste of my time. So you ask yourself, Marcus, ask yourself, whatever you're gonna do, does it make you happy? Are you gonna be happy doing that? You may be happy for 5 years, 6 years, But you got to understand, because success is not determined by your IQ, your intelligence quotient. It's determined by how much effort you're willing to put out. And one thing I did when I was in the 7th grade, every summer, I had a choice between going working at a junkyard or going to the library every day. I did it from the 7th grade to the 12th grade and reading everything I could read. I didn't know, because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know. I'm one of those 90% of the people who don't know what they want to do. Only about 10% of people know what they want to do from when they're 2 years old. Oh yeah, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer. I never even heard of a certified industrial hygienist or a certified safety professional or a marine chemist or a certified health physicist, and all these people make 6 figures or more a year. But all you hear is doctor, lawyer, teacher, dentist, but there are other meaningful, and as a certified industrial hygienist, you're dedicated to lifelong learning, ergonomics, bloodborne pathogens, tuberculosis. I mean, if that's what you're into. But everybody should be a lifelong learner and should love to learn, regardless of what grade you get. If you love to learn, chances are you're going to put in the work and you're going to put in the effort and you're going to get the grade you want. I took in Alabama A&M, I took a college course in English 101, and I busted my butt in that class. And the teacher, she always challenged me. She would give me stuff that would intentionally frustrate me or slow me down, whatever. And I bust my butt in that class and I got a B. I was mad, And then I took her again, and I had the same teacher. And at the end, she tried to give me this essay question that was, it was like impossible to figure out. And I complained. I said, no, that's not the one you're supposed to give me, And I got my A. But I wasn't going to let her stop me that time from getting my A. I had out of 6 classes, I had 5 A's and 1 B, and it was hers. And, and I was just frustrated, you know what I mean? But, I didn't give up. Yeah, Marcus.
And you gotta strive to get where you are now?
Huh?
You gotta strive to get where you are?
Thrive?
Yes. You have to strive to get where you are.
Yeah. And you can do it. You can do it. It's possible because if other people can do it, then and the thousands of people have done it before you, then there's no reason they weren't any more different than you. They weren't no better, no worse, no whatever. They're just people. Did I answer your question, Marcus? Do you have a better idea? In your own words, what is a strategic thinking, competent strategic thinker in your own words? How are you gonna become a strategic thinker? By studying those people I just put on there. On that, go to that. You're gonna go to that. I'll give you a copy of my PowerPoint presentation, and do research on those 5 people I named, who are the best in the world at strategic thinking. And that's what you want to do. Like if you want to build a bridge, you talk to a bridge builder. You go want to buy a pair of shoes, you don't go to a meat house, you go to a shoe store. And so if you want to know be a strategic thinker, do some research on those 5 people that I just gave you, and I'll help you. I'll start you off. A journey of 1,000 miles starts with 1 step, 1 footstep. So you got the internet. The internet is a game changer. You don't have to rely on other people to feed you information. The problem I found with kindergarten through even your bachelor's was that you were spoon-fed everything, and then when you get your master's and your PhD, they all of a sudden tell you got to think for yourself. So but that's what you need to do. Just read deeply into those 3 people, and you'll be a great strategic thinker. Matter of fact, you're already on your way. You just started by hearing this talk. And the questions you ask, always ask questions. Even if people say, oh, that's a stupid question, that's a dumb question, just ignore them. Just keep doing what you're doing. Keep asking questions and keep getting those A's, and then they walk around scratching their head. Maybe he ain't so dumb. He drives a new car every year. He got a house. He got money in his bank account. Maybe he's not dumb. Maybe he's doing something that I should be doing. He's not a drug dealer. What is he? He owns an occupational safety and health consulting firm, and he still wears Jordans and he wear fly clothes or FUBU or whatever.